So recently I've really been into watching girl group survival shows, and throughout these survival shows I always think inside my head, if someone were to audition and they were to view the show, it would really actually help them in the process and also give them a couple of tips and advice for their own journey as well. And it's so true because ultimately you'll be experiencing the same things that the trainees are experiencing on the show. So I thought I'd make a video on this. And originally I was actually going to include 3 survival shows that you should watch before you audition. However, I really got into one survival show in particular and ended up with so many details about this show for this video. So I decided to just introduce one survival show that you must watch before you audition. And this survival show is called A2K. But first, let me cover what K-pop survival shows are. So these survival shows are almost reality shows where contestants are competing against one another to ultimately join this new group that will be formed as a result of the show. And sometimes these shows have real-time live voting from fans just like us. However, A2K does not have that. In fact, all of the opinions are solely from professionals, including JYP, the JYP staff, and more. No fan involvement at all. And it was actually filmed back in September, so almost a year ago. And it's just kind of like the difference between survival shows. But going back to general survival shows, these shows essentially do provide more publicity for the contestants and also create an opportunity for them that they otherwise would not have. Also, it's just pure entertainment for the people watching it. But at the same time, survival shows are also known for evil editing. Now, this was popularized by Mnet, which is known for their very popular survival shows, but also this evil editing. So what is this? It's where certain contestants are painted in a bad light to create more publicity for the survival show. And although they didn't necessarily do anything wrong, their editing makes it seem like they are a bad human. And although this hasn't been showcased in A2K yet, thankfully, we'll see how it goes. So far, we're only at episode 12 or so, but in this video, I'm going to be going over episodes 1, 2, 3, as there's so much detail we need to go over. I was thinking we do the entire show up until now, but that's just not going to work. But firstly, let me just shortly describe what A2K is all about. So it's short for America to Korea, and JYP describes it as this: finding American talent to create a girl group through the K-pop system. They're planned to debut at the end of 2023. And it's funny because I previously did make an audition tutorial for this right here, and it kind of shows that my audition tutorials actually come to life. But going back to this, the goal is to ultimately fill up your pendant. It's got 4 slots, and these 4 slots showcase the singing, dancing, star quality, and character. And if you have all 4 of these slots, it guarantees for you to get a chance to go to the JYP training system in Korea. I actually watched the show twice just because I wanted to get all the details down. Firstly, it was just for my pure entertainment without knowing that I would actually be making this video. And then the second time more recently because I wanted to go back, reference all of the little details that I wanted to point out for this video. And let me just say, this show is targeted so well towards the American audience. Because firstly, this is probably the first K-pop survival show that's entirely in English, from the audio to the subtitles to essentially everything. It's also simple. It doesn't have a strong storyline to it like a lot of survival shows have, so it doesn't need much explanation, I suppose. And lastly, it kind of gives a relatability to the American or Canadian contestants, as American viewers are watching, hey, I could have been that girl, and it kind of gives a relatability. So let's start with episode 1, which is actually where I have the most points to talk about. So firstly, I want to explain and preface that they were given a short list of songs that they could sing or dance to in the round that they were viewing JYP themselves. And previously, they had 2 rounds to pass before this, so it's not like this was their first round audition. No. There were a few steps before this to actually go and meet JYP in these 5 cities that they auditioned for. I won't be talking about every single contestant, just if they have something to talk about. But firstly, let's start off with Kendalls Dancing, more specifically. And it's kind of crazy because when I'm watching these contestants dance, I'm like, oh my god, that point here and there, I hope that's mentioned in the feedback that JYP gives, and surely enough, he'll actually say it. So here are some points that I really did find interesting and kind of relatable. So firstly, the messy movements that need cleaning up. At first sight, you could think, oh, that's a pretty good dance. However, if you look into the dance and look into the details, a lot of them are missing, and that's probably because of the lack of precision that she gives in every single move. There's not really much emphasis and much up and down, I suppose. The correct term for this would be your dynamics. And sometimes she uses fluidity in an awkward sense where it's not really meant to be there, I suppose. And I also want to quickly talk about her facial expressions. I'll be repeating this often, but facial expressions can literally save your performance, whether it be vocal or dance. Literally, if she did not have those facial expressions and that connection with the judge, JYP, then she probably would not have gotten the pendant. To JYP, that's what made her stand out, her star quality. This just really goes to show how significant stage presence can be. Because her talent wasn't 100% perfect, he was really looking for the potential, and you can really see that through stage presence because that's something that you naturally can have yourself, and it's not something that can be taught through a training system. And he also mentions that she's the only one so far that actually made eye contact with him throughout their performance, their dancing performance. And this is so important because eye contact really showcases your stage presence and, most importantly, your confidence. Now, this actually is different for an actual offline audition because they'll typically have a judge sitting down, maybe a couple of other people, and then also a camera next to them, not directly in front of them, but next to them. During this kind of situation, then you have to look at the camera and not at the judge. Because this was actually like a TV show and there were many cameras to the side, there wasn't one that was directly next to JYP, so that would have been a little bit different. So now moving on to Lexus. I know she's like everyone's favorite, and I love how the entire fandom has made a general consensus that she should be #1. Or Camilla, but those two on top for sure. But anyway, actually when I first watched this for the first round, I did not watch the first episode because I just thought it would be a little bit dry and boring, but I was really shocked by Lexus's vocals because we really don't get to hear that in the later episodes. But I was super impressed, and I feel like she could definitely be an all-rounder in the future if she just kind of cleans up her vocals. And JYP gave her a very important feedback point: how your posture and your stance can really impact how others view you. So if you're just kind of sitting or standing like this and you're just singing like that, it just really makes you unsure of yourself and you seem very unconfident. However, if you're using natural body movements to sing and it guides you rather than just kind of standing there with nothing, it really changes it up. Her dance is so satisfying to watch, and it's like a rush of fresh air almost. It's actually really surprising to see how such strong movements, such hip-hop like movements, can be portrayed in like a ballet trained kind of style. I'm not really sure how that works, but she pulls it off so well. And at this moment, I started to question something. Is lip syncing banned in this? Like, why did no one choose to lip sync? It kind of got me a little bit weird because sometimes when you're just dancing, you naturally lip sync to the song. However, no one was doing that really, and they're not really hard lyrics as well. They're just simply English lyrics. So yeah, that was kind of weird. So now let's move on to episode 2. So firstly about Melissa. Her vocals at first seem perfect, but the more you listen to it, something's missing, I suppose. It's kind of thin and borderline has a nasal sound, and some people might interpret this as her own stylistic technique. However, it's not really the K-pop way to sing, I suppose, and JYP comments on that perfectly about not really using her air to her fullest potential, and I feel like that's where she lacks in. However, her vocals are so good and her performance was really good as well. And I feel like now is the perfect time to talk about a blank canvas. Now, this is kind of a term that SM Entertainment actually uses because that's what they prefer. They prefer a blank canvas. Rather than true talent, what they're looking for is your potential, and JYP kind of thinks of that similarly. Now, someone like Melissa, someone who's trained already, who already has developed their own stylistic techniques, does not have a blank canvas. Theirs is already beautifully drawn on, has like a perfect first draft per se. It's not colored in yet, but there's a first draft and it seems almost complete, like you can't erase the lines. And that's like a perfect simile or metaphor, you could say. Her habits and her mistakes, I suppose, are already ingrained in her so that she can't undo these mistakes. She can, but it's extremely difficult to kind of forget all of your past habits and kind of come with new ones. And just to be truthful, that is not what K-pop companies are looking for. K-pop companies want to develop a style for you because ultimately they're looking for group members that can almost feel aligned and similar in a sense. Otherwise, it's not going to feel very cohesive. If one member is this style, the other is this style, and they just don't come together. And I feel like Melissa is a perfect example of that. She would shine so much as a soloist, but not so much as a group member, which is kind of what they're looking for in the survival show. But going back to the potential thing, yes, definitely JYP looks for potential, because to quote him, he said, "I'm not looking for professionals, I'm looking for potential." So Christina is another perfect example of looking for potential. Although her moves are not perfect, she still has that connection and that stage presence. And I kind of wanted to personally comment that she's not using enough energy and power. This is something that I see often in beginner dancers. Of course, she's not a beginner dancer, but it's a common mistake that a lot of people use. It looks like you're using about 40% power than you potentially could. So that missing 60% is what kind of makes the judges feel, okay, there's something missing in this performance. I can't really tell, but it's not there yet, I suppose. And to fill in that 60% is really not hard. You just have to have your mindset on that all the time. Practice as if you're always putting your full potential into it, and you'll be great. Savannah, really quickly, I just wanted to mention that the way she presents herself, the energy that she brings to the table is ultimately what made her stand out. So if that's something that you want to take to your advantage, especially in an online setting as well, then definitely do so. Next, moving on to Kaylee. We know every single person loves her, everyone adores her, but I wanted to talk about her stance while singing. Kind of talked about this before, but the way she kind of stands, kind of tilted like that, and it doesn't really seem serious, I suppose, doesn't really set a great impression. You want to stand straight and make sure that the air is always flowing through, make sure your legs are not tilted to one side either, and that would really bring your vocal performance from maybe like an 8.5 to a 9.8. And here's yet again another example of where stage presence can save, I guess for this example, your dance performance. She had these facial expressions that were really creating a connection with the viewers, and it's just something that just makes you want to keep on watching, although she's not stylistically or I guess in a technique sense, not perfect. But JYP describes this as passion. You can see her passion despite the imperfections, I suppose. Lastly, I want to talk about Gina. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe that she is only 13. It almost seems a little fake. I'm not saying she's lying, but like the way she presents herself is so mature, and her confidence, her ability, her talent, her skill, it's crazy. There's two new things that I learned about the JYP training system by kind of listening to her. So firstly, JYP casts people online. So what does this mean? If you have your stuff out there on the internet and they're actually targeted towards the K-pop industry, I suppose, so putting your vocal performances out online and your dance performances online, JYP could cast you. I didn't know that this was a possibility. And of course, her part about describing the JYP training system was a little scripted to show it off, I suppose, but I mean, what can you do? I didn't know that they had various lessons that go from behavior, morality, geography, and also history. So JYP trainees kind of learn about these random things, I suppose, but ultimately they all kind of go into that idol category and that character. So I actually see two very serious problems about this survival show. I'll probably be talking about one of them later in the episode review, simply because it's just not the timing for that, I suppose. But the other problem that I want to talk about is their ages. The fact that the oldest people that are in the survival show, and for the auditions as well, is like 18. I think that's a little bit too low. They're barely adults, and it's not like JYP is giving them more training time before they debut. It's only like a year or so. So kind of is a little bit odd that JYP only really looks for young contestants. It's not new. We know that JYP trainees debut at a really early age, but it just kind of irks me, I just suppose. Now I suppose if this video does really well, I might do an episode review on the next episodes as well, because I really do want to talk about it. I think these things are so interesting, and pointing out these little details, connecting them to K-pop auditions, I think is so important to make it a little bit more fun for yourself, learning about auditions and gaining more tips. So let me know if you'd like that in the comments down below. And also, just for fun, guess who my bias is. I have about 2 to 3 biases in A2K, so try and guess who they are. I might have talked about them in this episode review, I might have not. These weren't based off of my favorites, I suppose. They were just kind of things I wanted to touch on. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!